Hey guys, how's it going? Today we are starting an entire herb garden from seed with the goal of filling up one of our 3-foot by 6-foot raised beds once it's warm enough to plant things out. I'm excited for this project. I think it's going to be fun to bring you guys along from today, the start date when we put seeds in the pots, all the way to the end of the season, just to see how things did, how things grew and filled in. I also broke this project up into steps and drew up a little herb garden layout for those of you who might be beginners, just to give you some ideas and maybe a track to run on. So this is our 3 by 6 raised bed, and I broke everything up into 1-foot sections and then laid out all of the herbs that we are going to be growing. And I'll show you this again. I also wrote down all of the herbs that were important to me, the sizes that they grow, how many I wanted to grow of each one of them, and then also some of the important information as far as how deep to plant the seed, how many days to expect germination. Most of these herbs that we're planting today are perennials, so I wrote down the zones, and then how many weeks before your average last frost date you can start the seeds. So step number 1 is deciding which herbs you want to grow, and not everybody's group of herbs will be the same because we all have different taste preferences. We all use more of this or more of that, depending on what we like to cook. So you can see on my list right here, I've chosen to grow 8 different herbs: basil, dill, chives, oregano, parsley, rosemary, sage, and thyme. And you can see based on the number of plants that I plan to grow, how much we actually use each one of these herbs. The second thing you need to do is to figure out where you're going to be growing these. Most herbs prefer full sun, so you want to make sure whatever spot you pick has at least 6 to 8 hours of full sun every single day, and then determine the size of the space because that will determine how many herbs you can grow. The third thing you need to do is gather up your supplies. You're going to need your herb seeds right here. You're going to need something to identify each one of your herbs, and I just use recycled tags. Like, these are tags that came in other plants. I just turn them over and use those. Something to write with, and then of course something to grow your herbs in. I've got a little tray that has drain holes here. We don't need to take up a lot of space doing this project, which is nice. And I also figured out that we're going to be growing 14 plants. You really don't need that many herb plants in order to have a lot of herbs to use because they are usually very prolific growers and productive plants, unless you're planning on, preserving something like growing a ton of basil to freeze a bunch of pesto or something like that. I'm just using recycled containers. Some succulents came in these at one point or another, so I'm just going to use 14 of those. I also have a humidity dome. You don't have to have anything fancy. I mean, you can use saran wrap, just something to help trap in humidity and heat while the seeds are germinating. And then you need your seed starting mix, which you're not going to need a whole lot of it. And it's a low-cost project. I added up everything that I have here, and I did have a couple things on hand, like my recycled plant tags. I already had the marker. I had the little succulent containers, but I bought the seeds. I bought the tray and the soil, and I came in just at right around $25. So an entire herb garden with 14 plants for $25. I think that's pretty good. Not to mention the fact that you will have a lot of seed starting mix left over. At least I will. I mean, you can buy smaller bags for sure. And you will also have a ton of seeds left over. So if you can find a friend who likes to grow things too, and you want to share the cost of seeds, I mean, that's the best way to go, because the chives, what are we growing? We're growing 2 chive plants, and this is 1/8 of an ounce. There's a ton of seeds in here that will last forever. I pick up a lot of my seeds down at my parents' garden center, so you can get quite a lot for a small amount of money. Like a 1/2 ounce of parsley seeds. I wish these were clear so you could see. There's so many. $2. I wonder if I could just do this. Look at this. $2 worth of seed. Like, who does that? That's so many parsley plants. The fourth thing you want to do is to gather up a little bit of information on each one of the herb seeds that you chose. Most prepackaged seeds will have all of that information on the back, and the important things are how deep to plant your seed, which in this case, this is common oregano, 1/8 to 1/4 inch. How many days to germination? This is 5 to 10. Kind of nice to know that because, if day 15 to 20 rolls around and you still don't see a plant, you might consider tossing a few more seeds in there and trying over again. And then also what the ideal soil temperature is for germination, 70 to 80 for oregano. And then it tells you how many weeks to start your seed before your average last frost date. This one's 6 to 8 weeks. At this point in time, we are earlier than that. And I'm okay with that because I've got mine starting in a little bit larger containers, and I'm okay potting mine up into larger ones along the way if we need to. I'd rather start with a little bit bigger plants than smaller plants. And like I showed you before, I wrote down all of that information right here just so I had a quick reference guide. Okay, so once you have all that stuff worked out, we can do the next step, which is to prep our soil. Soil type does make a difference. You'll want to use a seed starting mix because they are a lighter, loftier blend and the plants have an easier time forming up a nice root system. Regular potting mix can tend to be a little bit too heavy. So what you need to do is pour a little bit out into an enclosed, like a watertight container. We don't need too much. And then we're gonna add a little bit of water. Now we're just going to try to blend the water with the soil. And the consistency that we're looking for is moist enough to where the soil kind of holds together in a form, but not so moist that if you squeeze really hard, water comes out. We don't want it to be soggy. And the benefit of pre-moistening your soil is, one, it's easier to keep them moist from the beginning for sure. If all of your soil is moist from the start, it also helps settling. When you put soil that's more moist into your containers initially, it just settles naturally a lot easier instead of like putting in dry soil and then watering it and then all of a sudden you notice it drop by about half, which can dislodge your seeds and it just makes it more difficult. This right here is about right. See, if I squeeze it really hard, it holds together, but I can't squeeze out any moisture at all, just lightly moistened. Now that our soil is prepped, we can fill up all of our containers. And I am gonna actually do that in this container instead of getting a bunch of loose soil at the bottom of my tray. Bring you in closer for this part. We're gonna load them all up. Then you want to give it a bit of a tap and then lightly tamp the soil in with your fingers, not too tight. Just create a nice soil bed for your seeds. It's about perfect right there. Okay, do that 13 more times. Oh my gosh, I mixed up way too much soil. Let's start a second herb garden here. Save this for our next project. Our pots are ready for planting, but before we put our seeds in, it's a really good idea to write out your plant ID tags and put those in each pot before you even pop seeds in, especially if it's a mixed tray like this is gonna be. It would be so incredibly easy to mix up which one is which. So let's get these all written out first. Oregano, 2 plants. Ooh, my marker's running out. Parsley, 1. How many chives? 2. See if this one has more juice. Oh yeah. All done. So now we just need to take each one of these tags and pop them in the container. We might have to cut a few of these down. They might be a little bit tall to fit under the dome. The one other piece of information that's helpful to know, which is on every seed packet, is whether or not your variety that you've got is recommended to start inside early or to direct seed it outside in the ground once it's warmed up. In our case, we could wait on the dill, chives, and basil. All 3 of those are incredibly easy to direct seed in the ground. You just throw the seed in, keep them moist, they come up. Would do equally as well as starting with plants. But in our case, I kind of want to monitor the whole project and have plants to start with everything, and that's completely up to you and what you're more comfortable with. Okay, now back to where we were. Okay, they are all ready for seeds at this point. So we're just gonna start in, and we've got our little information guide right here. I'm just gonna start at the top with basil, which needs to go 1/4 inch deep. And I like to throw at least 2 or 3 seeds in each container. That way, if you have trouble getting them to germinate, you at least have a little bit of a backup in there. And if all 3 of them come up, we can thin them out later. And I'm gonna try to get you guys a close-up of each one of these, show you what the seeds look like and all that. Basil. That's what the seed looks like. Here's our 2 basil containers. We want to go 1/4 inch deep. Just gonna pop our seeds in. We'll cover over them just lightly. Basil's done. Dill. There's the seed. We need to go 1/8 to 1/4 inch deep. 3 seeds. And cover over lightly. Chives. Kind of look like basil seeds. 1/4 inch deep. Oregano. Ooh. Oh my word. These are like poppy seeds. They are so little. Whoa. We'll need to go about 1/8 of an inch deep. Boy, these are so little, I probably just planted 5 or 6 seeds in each one of those. It's all right. Parsley next, 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. They look a bit like our dill seed. Rosemary. There's the seeds, and these want to be surface sown. So we don't want to cover over them with any soil. I'm gonna probably pop 5 seeds because rosemary, I have the hardest time starting from seed. I want to make sure I've got lots of choice or lots of opportunities here. We just kind of press those seeds into the soil surface, just like that. Sage. Ooh, those are kind of big. Nice. Go 1/4 inch deep. Last up, thyme. Oh, these are not in a separate bag. Okay. Ooh, look at those. Go 1/8 of an inch deep. All the seeds are in. Now the next thing you can do, I did not include on our list of supplies because it's not a necessary thing, but I find it helpful. I've got some vermiculite right here, and you can top dress all of these, especially the rosemary that doesn't have any soil over its seeds, with this. This will still allow light to penetrate and reach the seeds that need light, like the rosemary, in order to germ, but it also helps retain moisture levels. It helps with some fungal issues that can happen with baby seedlings. I find it helpful, but it's not necessary. You do not have to use it. If you do though, just a nice light layer on top of each container, and then we are going to water them in. And you'll just need a spray bottle or a mister. I'm using this one right here. Let me get the vermiculite on quick. There are a lot of little things I've learned throughout the years of seed starting that I've found to be helpful with the process, but not 100% necessary. Like vermiculite, you can use it. I find it helpful, but you don't have to. Seedling heat mats, I use them on occasion, but not very often. And then grow lights. Now I'd say out of everything that you can invest in for seed starting, if you're gonna especially get serious about it, grow lights are the best investment you can make because they provide really strong, even light to the entire seed tray. But you don't have to have one. If you have a southern window or a western window where the seed tray is going to get nice strong light for a certain amount of hours per day, usually you want to make sure it's at least 8. I run my grow lights for 16 hours a day. But if you can put it in the sunniest spot in your house and then just make sure to rotate your tray every day so that your plants are getting light on each side for a short amount of time, you will do fine. Okay. So now we mist them in. We don't water with a watering can because that can dislodge our seeds. I like to use this kind of on a fine mist spray setting. And we just water them in. Just settles everything in really nicely without moving everything around. And because we pre-moistened our soil, we do not have to water them in all that much. It's perfect. Okay, they're done, planted, watered in. This step is done, except for our humidity dome, and we need to put them underneath our grow light in the studio. So again, humidity dome or something like it, loose saran wrap, anything that's clear that will allow light to still enter is so helpful. It's kind of like an incubator for your seeds because it holds in heat and humidity. Typically, we're growing flats of the same thing, so they're coming up at the same rate, and we keep the humidity dome on until the whole tray has germinated, and then we take it off. In our case, because we have so many different things in here, as things emerge, I'm just going to pop them out and just set them to the side and leave anything else that needs extra incubating time underneath the dome. And then once they're all up, I'll take this away completely, and then they can all just hang out together in this tray. And then in terms of your grow light, now most seeds won't need light until they actually germinate. So you don't need to worry about rushing it underneath a grow light or putting it in a sunny spot until that happens. But I find it easier just to find it its location where it's going to live for a while at the very beginning, so then I don't have to worry about moving it unless the seed packet specifically indicates that that seed needs light in order to germinate. In that case, you do want to make sure to provide it light right from the very beginning. I just find it easier to do it that way, and then you can skip a step. So let's move this into the studio where it's going to sit for a while. All right, there we go. So you can see our grow light here. We've already got some seedlings going, and I have it running for 16 hours. Turns on in the morning and turns off at night. It's on a timer, so I know that these are gonna get proper light. And you can see the other things we've got going on. We've got a tray full of beautiful geraniums, little seedling update here. They came up beautifully. Every single one of them came up. And then we've got our artichokes going. So we've got, what is this one? This one's Imperial Star right here. And I've got all the cells up. I've got one that's got 2 in it, so I can separate and fill another cell. And I think I've got 21 plants altogether. And then we've got Green Globe right here, which they're still popping up. Like these just came up yesterday. Just noticed them last night. So I think the rest of the cells will soon follow. Then we've recently started a tray of foxglove like yesterday, so they won't be up yet. Neither will our anise hyssop, not quite. And then we are experimenting with teucrium or germander, which is super spotty germination. I did reseed all the rest of the cells. Pretty old seed that could be contributing to it. I don't know. And like I said, I can scoot this back, and as plants, come up, I can pop the containers out and just set them out here, because I do have a fan running. And that's pretty important too. When the seedlings come up, you want to get them out from underneath the humidity dome. You want to get them in a spot where there's good airflow that kind of moves the seedlings around. It makes them stronger and makes them hardier to go outside and withstand the outside elements. And the fan I only have running during the daytime, not day and night. That would dry them out too fast. I do want to show you the herb guard layout just in a little bit more detail here, but I'll show you the raised bed where they're going to end up, hopefully, about end of April, beginning of May. Got our raised bed garden here. It's a nice frosty morning, but the herbs will probably end up in this 3x6 or the 3x6 over on this side that I still have celery and beans in. Nice. I've got herbs in other areas of my garden, and I actually love to grow them just in perennial borders because so many of them are so great that way. And I want to say the rosemary is not a perennial here. It is a tender perennial, so we can dig it up and treat it as a houseplant. They do really well that way. And the only ones that will die out for us are the basil and dill. Those are not frost tolerant at all. And then the parsley is technically, is it like a biennial? Most people treat it as an annual. I usually treat it as an annual, but it's one that I could bring into the greenhouse as well. Everything else is perennial. So these right here, the chives, thyme, oregano, and sage are all perennial. The parsley, if we have a really mild winter, it may come back. It also could stay in the greenhouse. Rosemary is a greenhouse or inside plant, will not withstand winters, but if we carry it over, we can plant both of those back out the next year. And then basil and dill, actually have fair luck with basil inside. Dill, I've never had good luck inside. So these are definitely annuals. And then our herb garden layout again, I did go through and I wrote down all the sizes of the plants. Most of them. I don't know why I skipped parsley. Anyway, just so that I had a really good idea as to, each variety is a little bit different. And you could pick out a really compact variety of basil or a basil that gets really big. So depending on what you have, they're going to take up a different amount of space. So I figured out my varieties and then figured out how I could lay them out to where they would fit and look pretty. So I'm doing dill in the center because those are the tallest. It'll kind of be like a bouquet. We'll have a nice tall centerpiece. And then I'm going to flank on either side with our basil plants, which get 24 to 30 inches tall. These will get like 3 feet plus tall. And then we've got our rosemary here, a sage, 2 oregano, thyme, parsley, and then chives on the end. I think it's going to be a really pretty raised bed out there. I think it's going to be so nice to have all my herbs in one spot. I do have a green stalk in here that I did plant with a lot of herbs last year, right here. So you can actually see some of these things like parsley. You can see how it's wintering over. We've got some thyme in here. There's chamomile. Here's a rosemary. Things are just looking, a little stressed. I need to come back through and cut things back. There's some sorrel. But I really wanted to challenge myself this year to do it from seed and to do it in a definite amount of space, not like, some sprawling area where I can plant a bunch of different things. I wanted to pick a raised bed to fill up with herbs and kind of keep it at that. So we got our first step of the project done today, got all the seeds planted. So now we'll just have to tend to those until we're ready to plant them out. And I like to have those kinds of jobs to work on, especially this time of year. So I check my seedlings every single day. With the humidity dome on, they typically don't need water every single day. It's important not to overdo it, but it's also important not to let them dry out. So just putting your eyes on them once a day just to assess the situation, I think is really a good habit to get into. And I use my mister until the seedlings have all come up. Once they've come up, I use a little watering can. I like there's a little dram watering can. I can't remember the size of it. It's like some 2 pints, or no, it's 4 pints. I don't know. It's small, and it's got a really small spout, so it's really easy to direct the water exactly where you want it to go. Anyway, I find that one very helpful for watering my seed trays because it allows me to give them more water than a misting can, but it also allows me to control it, and so I don't overdo. So hopefully in just a short amount of time, we've got some beautiful seedlings like this to work with, and then we can up pot them if necessary, or, you know, just wait and plant them out later on in the spring. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it for today's project, phase 1 of our little herb garden, and I'm very excited for it. And full disclosure, I think I'll probably have the toughest time with that rosemary. I usually skip starting rosemary from seed just based on past experience and just buy a plant, but I really just wanted to give it another go this year and see how it goes. I've had it germinate and I've had it come up. It's just so slow. I'm hoping we're early enough to where we can get a little bit of size on the plant before we plant it out. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. Kind of a seed starting 101, really, just going through all the steps, or all the steps that I take. Everybody does it just a tiny bit different, but I found a lot of success doing it with these steps, and I really enjoy it. So I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you're able to do something with plants today. Just let it fill that cup this time of year, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.